This is for those people that got the PPP mainly, or they didn't even know about the credit. What we're going to do here today, we're going to show you how to get employee retention credit out of 2020. Here is the employee retention credit under 2020. You can't do PPP and the ERC. Over here, under the CAA Act, we now can do PPP and ERC for 2020. The next thing is all the rules down on each one of these are the same if we're doing the employee retention credit in 2020. So we got the same set of rules. So with that, what I'd like to do, I'm just doing this to transfer. Here's the here's the old law. It's going away. And now here is the new law for 2020 and 2021. Let's go back to the act itself, and what it did is it really said you can now get the ERC. We didn't really change the rules, and in another video I'm going to show you how to allocate your wages for 2020 and 2021. But for here today, you first got to understand the rules in order to go back to that timeline to know how to allocate your wages. So with that, the first thing I'd like to do is I would really look at 2020 after the CAA Act to see if we can get some more money, see if we can get some more credit. Probably the reason why, Laura, we need to go in a little bit of detail here, most of the people out there, the small businesses that got the PPP, they didn't pay attention to the rules on ERC because it was either you get it and not PPP, or you get PPP and you don't get ERC. So I'm a small business. Why would I want to pay attention to that? So we do have a video that we did back a few months ago on ERC, and it's still the same set of rules. It goes in a lot more detail, but let's just do a recap. So it's an employee retention credit. It's a refundable payroll tax credit. That's important. And what we're going to find out for last year, for 2020, that refundable credit, you normally would have done it on your quarterly payroll report, or for an advance payment, you would use $7,200. Now when we get to 2021, we're going to do that. But the first thing we got to do is go back to each quarter of 2020 and see if we have qualified wages for this. Well, how do we get qualified wages? That's our next one, qualified wages at a qualified period. Now, what happens, and again, I'm going to lay this marker right here. I'm not really talking about this column until later so that I don't confuse as I go through the presentation. So I'm not talking about this right now. Again, we're mainly focused on those people that got PPP in 2020 and now says, I want some more money, which they're entitled to. And so we got to look at qualified wages for a qualified period. Well, that period starts on March 13th of 2020. And actually what the law said is that payroll, qualified payroll is if we meet the eligibility requirements. In other words, we're sheltered down, our revenues have dropped. But again, the qualified period for this, when you look back, is from March 13th through December 31st. What's the credit? It's 50% of qualified wages. So the only thing I want to say about qualified wages, we're looking for a whole bunch of guidance to come out in this area. But when you look at qualified wages, it means it was paid in this period between March 13th and the end of the year. The qualified wages was paid when the small business was either, again, had met one of the eligibility tests, and we've got those at the bottom here, and I probably just going ahead and go down and look at those. One, the business is fully or partially suspended due to the order of a government, including local government, or, this is an or, 50% or more reduction in gross receipts in the same 2020 quarter as in 2019. Again, this column to the left here is old law. But again, if I was doing a PPP, I wouldn't have been paying attention. So here's what it's an eligible period between March 13th and 12/31. Here's how we qualify during that period. Again, partially or fully suspended. And like at our office, we live in the town of Rolla. Well, their rules was different than the state of Missouri. So what happened was we had to look based on who had jurisdiction. So when you go back to do this, you're literally going to have to go back. So here's kind of like a to-do list. You're going to have to go back to March 12th and come forth and look at that particular small business that I am to see when I was eligible and not eligible. And again, it shows you how many quarters, etc., but this is the general rule. The qualified wage cap for 2020 was $10,000, and then we got 50% of that. So if we take the 50% times the $10,000, that's a $5,000 credit per employee. And I want to highlight that. That's per employee. So that means if I had 5 employees, I could qualify up to, and it's by each employee, I could take during this period and have up to $10,000 of qualified wages, which would get me a refundable credit of $5,000. Okay? Here's the kind of twist to that. You're going back in time. The only thing you have to watch is we can't double dip. We can't use the same wage for the PPP as we do the ERC. It's got to be different wages. The next one was that you had to have under 100 what we call full-time equivalent employees. And so if we met that, then all of our employees could qualify as long as we retained them. And here's another one. This was a big question. Bonuses. No, you could not include bonuses in the ERC. So it could not, they didn't want you to play games when the CARES Act came out. They didn't want you to play game. But our problem was with this 2020, we got them into return, and I want to go back and kind of mention how do I file this, because that's the one little part we haven't talked about. If I'm trying to go back and get, in 2020, I'm trying to get the ERC, I'm going to go back in each quarter and comply with this set of rules we just went through, and I'm going to figure out each quarter what should be my refund. And then in the law, it says that in the fourth quarter, we should have, and I'm going to quote it, a catch-up, catch-up, catch-up.
Not the red stuff.
No, not the red stuff. But here's the thing, we have to wait for guidance. And in this case, the quarterly reports are due now. So I hope they do some kind of extension, but don't quote me on that. But the thing about it, even you can go back and amend your fourth quarter, because remember, this is a credit to the employer. It's not to the employee. So the W-2s appear to be, you could go on ahead and issue those W-2s. And Debbie and I did a video earlier on the 941s tying them out to the W-2. So you might want to go to that to see, again, this either needs to be for 2020, the catch-up needs to be on the fourth quarter report, whether it's on the timely filed one or on the amended one. So I think, keep the stuff going as far as keep the information reporting and compliant. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and it was actually somebody that does teaching. They didn't realize that this had even happened. So it's new to a lot of people. And that's the other thing I want to say. Always make sure you're in the right reference. Because right now, if I pick up and Google the ERC, they're frequently asked questions at the IRS. They're for the old rules, not the rules here. If I go out and search and look at all these opinions out there, nobody's really putting out opinions. They're just saying, here are the facts, because they're waiting on the IRS and Treasury to give guidance. So again, to wrap this, Laura, this is really good news, but the complexity is to go back and figure out, when was my period of the PPP, then outside of those boundaries, after this after March 12th, then was there qualified periods of eligibility? And again, that's for another presentation.